everyone, welcome into Vol Society Live on this Wednesday night. My name is David Morris, and I am the Vol Society lead analyst right here on the Vol Society Network. We're glad you are joining us here tonight across our social media platforms, facebook.com/UT Vol Society, youtube.com/Vol Society, and on Twitter at Vol Society. You are a part of this show. This is your show each and every Wednesday night. I'm just kind of moderating it through the evening here. I'll be bringing some news and notes. But if you have any questions and you're watching us live on one of our social media platforms, go ahead and leave us a comment. It's been a huge week here at Vol Society. We have launched the official podcast of Vol Society, Good Old Rocky Talk. It launched yesterday across Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. Hope you had a chance to check it out. If you haven't, there is right across the crawl on the bottom is where you can find it. Just search for Good Old Rocky Talk. It's, like I said, the official podcast of Vol Society. Is hosted by our founder, Brad, and the two Davids. I'm one of the Davids, and then David Dees is the other one. Like I said, we just recorded the episode on Monday, and it dropped yesterday. We talked about the speaking of our founder, Brad, in the chat room saying, "Go Vols." Timothy checking in says 8 days away. Absolutely. It is getting close, but like I was saying, the podcast is out there. It's has some great reviews so far. We got a couple 5-star reviews. It was an awesome episode. We're going to be dropping a new episode each and every week, so make sure you're subscribed. Thank you, Kevin, saying the podcast was awesome. Appreciate it. It's not as easy as we thought it was going to be, but I mean, it went very well. Like I said, it was a great time. So yes, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and like I said, along with our social media platforms, and we will make sure that we drop them. Paul checking in the chat room. He says, "What games are you going to watch Saturday?" Well, it's week 0 officially. Not really a whole lot. I'll be probably checking in on maybe like Nebraska, Northwestern. They're playing over in Ireland, which, that's the first two teams I think of with Irish teams is Nebraska, Northwestern, but it is what it is. Vanderbilt is going to the Big Island of Hawaii, so maybe catch that one late night. But most of the games I'm looking forward to are in week 1. Let's see. Yeah, if you're watching us right now, Brad said, if you're watching us right now, go and find us now on Fall Society. Timothy fired up about the season. My Uncle Tim watching us from Simpsonville, South Carolina. Even though he's down in Gamecock country, but he's a big Tennessee fan, a Tennessee alumni himself. 8 days away. Miss K, it's football time in Tennessee. Like I said, Timothy also saying hopefully we can win at halftime against Ball State. We'll dive more into Ball State next week, but definitely so. Any topics you want to, like I said, also I want to mention this here while everybody's here. Hello to my grandparents watching along. Man, the chat is going crazy. I'm loving it. Thank you guys. If you have any questions for the podcast, please type your questions in the podcast. We want you to use the hashtag podcast, PODCAST, so we can answer those shows on the podcast, and I'm not silly enough to answer them right here on the show. If you want any questions answered for the live stream, just go ahead and type it up. But anything for the podcast, use the hashtag podcast, so we can answer it on the next episode. So hopefully that will clear it up. Like I said, you can ask me anything tonight. But if you want it just for the podcast as a discussion, use that hashtag podcast. So it makes it a lot easier for us. All right, hopefully got that out of the way. Everybody just chatting with each other. Let's see. I would love to hear more about the dominance Tennessee had in the 90s. We may bring up that in discussion down the road. Anyways, let's see. As far as kind of news and notes go, we'll go ahead and talk about Lynn J. Dixon. He is no longer on the Tennessee football team. We kind of discussed that on the podcast for a couple minutes. we kind of mentioned, I guess, the last couple of weeks. He came in from the transfer portal through West Virginia. Like I said, when Lethan Whitehead went out, uh, and we were trying to find kind of a veteran running back, and we went with Lynn J. Dixon. But it looks like, just kind of what I'm hearing, he didn't really was a good fit with the program. Looked like, like I said, he was banged up in fall camp and was missing some practices, and especially right now, like I said, we're 8 days away, and it was more than 8 days when he got injured. Uh, we needed him to learn the playbook as quickly as he can, and it just wasn't working out. And now he's no longer with the team at all. So, well, and I kind of mentioned on the podcast, I wonder if it was more of a coaching decision than a player decision, which in all that. But we shall see. Anyways, well, best wishes for him. We'll see what happens along the way. But it's just kind of just bad times. Brad saying, "Who's ready for game day, folks?" And like I said, yeah, we're already here, definitely. Let's see here. That's kind of what's going on as far as like rosters goes. This is a tough subject to talk about, and I really don't know where to go with it. But William Mohan was suspended indefinitely for the team for some stuff that you can kind of Google on your own. I really don't like talking about players getting arrested and having legal trouble, because these are kids, and especially here in the internet world, a lot of things can kind of get misled and misinterpreted, and I don't want to be a part of that. That's why I kind of cringe at other Tennessee pages that talk about other players getting arrested in, outside of the football team and legal troubles. I really don't want to do that, but I do want to just bring it up that he's no longer on the team. Uh, and like I said, you can kind of have your opinion on it. I don't want to say anything that's going to hurt or anything, but I just wanted to put that out there too, so there's not a couple of players that's no longer on the team for various reasons. One more for, I guess, playing time, and another one for a pretty serious commit. So, but anyways, uh, we'll clear that out. All right. So, like I said, good old Rocky Talk. Like I said, go to Apple Podcast now and search for subscribe to the Vol Society Podcast. And thank you very much. Man, like I said, it's been doing very well. Like I said, we'll keep the crawl going across the bottom, and so you can check it out. Like I said, we're 8 days away until it's football time in Tennessee. It's crazy to think that we're now in the single digits. I mean, it's fantastic to see that. Like I said, Ball State comes into town September the 1st. I'm not expecting much of a game from it. Like I said, we'll really break down Ball State next week on the eve of game day, which is crazy to think. I agree with you, Timothy. I think it's going to be a blowout win. Like I said, I just want to see mainly nobody get hurt, uh, in this game. And, like I said, I want to see a lot of players get some playing times. And especially, like I said, at left tackle, we're still kind of figuring out who our starting left tackle is, either J.J. Crawford or Gerald Mincy. Hopefully, we can kind of have an answer after that before we play Pittsburgh. It's definitely interesting. Paul said, I just read your comment there. Josh Heupel is going to have a conversation with the media like the Oklahoma State coach did. It could be interesting. I think Heupel's over 40. Anyways, Brad's saying Vols over 50 against Ball State. Yeah, I don't see Josh Heupel going anywhere. Like I said, I like to just main thing is just everybody stay healthy. Everybody, like I said, put up your best performance against Ball State. Like I said, we'll get ready for Pittsburgh. Paul says, if they get a big enough lead, I like to see a lot of freshmen get some game time. I think you'll see that definitely throughout the game, especially at the running back position now. No more Lynn J. Dixon. Uh, we'll see how I say Jabari Small will get the start. Jalen Rice still kind of banged up. I don't know what his timetable is going to be. I'm sure he'll play. We'll see, but definitely we shall see Justin Williams, Thomas, and Dylan Sampson play. Brad says starters won't play long, so I'm not saying this is a preseason type of game, but probably the closest you're going to see to a preseason type of game. Be exact words. Like I said, if Tennessee gets to a big lead, go ahead and get Hendon Hooker, get Small out, Cedric Tillman, uh, Jacob Warren out there. Brad says definitely preseason and got to be prepared for next week because definitely so. Because like I said, we talked about and especially go back to listen to our podcast for our season prediction record. But September is definitely a huge month for Tennessee. And like I said, you get a couple of easy games in Ball State and Akron. But, kind of sandwiched in between there, you get Pittsburgh. You got to go to Pitt week 2, revenge game. Pitt's ranked number 17 in the country. This is not a pushover team by no means, but definitely is a game that we have to go up there and win. And then we talked about the Florida game many, many times. This is the year you got to beat Florida. There's no questions about it. But I know, like I said, I want you to go back and listen to the podcast, but we also talked about some of the big games coming up, and we mentioned Pitt and Florida very heavily in it. Those are 2 big, crucial games, especially for September. In October, it doesn't get much easier because you get LSU and Alabama. Kentucky's also a part of that mix, although we feel very confident with Kentucky. Paul says it would be awesome if college football got to have 3 preseason games. It would be interesting. I don't know. I guess you can kind of say the 3 non-conference games are kind of a preseason to extent, but it would be kind of interesting. Maybe some sort of a scrimmage, I guess. I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. Maybe I don't know if the coaches would go for that. It would be awesome if college had playoffs like the NFL. Depends on who you talk to. If you ask Josh Pate that, he would probably disagree with you on that. I'm 50-50 with the playoffs. There's some stuff I like about it and some stuff I kind of cringe on, but that's a good thing about it. Paul says the orange and white game isn't enough. No, definitely not. Yeah, I'll be happy whenever we get the orange and white game back at Neyland Stadium. We've missed the last couple of years, either through renovations or COVID. So definitely looking forward to that. Have they? Kevin says, have they even said who LSU's quarterback is yet? It looks like it's going to be Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State, from what I'm hearing. I know. Is it Miles Brennan that left the program? Somebody clarify me. I think it was Miles Brennan that left the program. He just taking some time away from football. So it looks like to me everything I'm reading is Daniels from Arizona State that's probably going to be starting for Brian Kelly and the family. Yes, okay, Kevin's confirming. Yeah, he did. Okay, so I know it's between him and another guy, and I think Daniels is probably going to be the starting quarterback for LSU. Like I said, but we'll find out a lot about them. They get a big game coming up a week from Sunday. Brad said, I said it on the podcast, but that's the game I think we'll lose. Oh, the LSU game. Yeah. And I concurred with that. Timothy says Josh Heupel will have more wins than Brian Kelly this year. Could be possible. I think they're both right in the same preseason win prediction. Both teams are going to be very talented, obviously, but we shall see. Kevin says, gotcha. I still think we get them. It could possible. I mean, like I said, we have a bye week before them. And like I said, that's the week after we play Florida. So you get Florida, then the bye week, and then you get LSU. So you get which I think we'll get the win over Florida, but you get an emotional win over Florida. And then, like I said, you kind of celebrate that win for the weekend, and then you switch into LSU and you get an extra week to prepare for them to go down to Baton Rouge. And tough place to play. Hopefully we play them in the daytime and not night, but I can't make that decision. Yeah, Brad concurs. Hard playing down there. Absolutely. Definitely a tough place to play. One of the toughest places in college football. But good question. Any others? Like I said, if you're joining us now, you can ask me some questions or comments. If you want to ask a question or a comment for the podcast, make sure you use the hashtag podcast. So I don't read it here, and then we have nothing to talk about on the podcast. Timothy says, "What about Bama? Do we have a chance?" For me personally, no. Like I said, Bama is a really good team. Bryce Young at quarterback, Will Anderson on the defense. A lot of Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, a transfer from Georgia Tech. I could see maybe the first half being kind of close. Being right there at halftime, but I think they just got more depth and more talent than us. Although I think our depth has gotten better, or will be better this year. I just think, like I said, they just on a totally different level right now. It's going to take a little while. Brad says not against Bama, but we beat Georgia. Brad's going with the Georgia win, so definitely go back to the podcast and listen to that. Paul says Hendon Hooker is way better than Young. That's really good. That's a really good debate. I know Hendon Hooker threw less interceptions than Bryce Young did. And it's your defending Heisman Trophy winner, which I think his teammate probably should have won it, but that's another debate for another day. Timothy says, any chance chances against Florida? Yes, we should beat Florida. Like I said, Florida's going through a rebuild year. They've kind of had a wacky off season. A lot of their fan base is kind of weird with their coach because he's kind of I don't know. He has a little bit of a Lyle Jones mentality to him, tiptoeing around previous coaching names. So the fan base is kind of weird with them. I just think we got more talent, more depth than Florida. They're still going through the first year head coaching rebuild. We went through that last year. You get them at home. Main thing is to stop Anthony Richardson, their quarterback. But if you can stop them or at least contain them, I think we have a shot to win. We should win this year. Kevin says, like 98, baby, they don't give us a chance then either. I hope. Absolutely. And other stuff. Oh, talking about Bryce Young and stuff. Brad says that game will be unreal because this is our year to beat the Gators. We'll be sold out, no doubt. Timothy says, what about South Carolina? South Carolina is kind of a team I can't really figure out, especially since we play them so late in the season. Normally we play them around Halloween, but we get them right the week before Thanksgiving. So it just depends on where South Carolina is by this point. I think they're a decent team. But I don't think they're going to shock the world. If we go down to Columbia, and it's going to be a tough road game, Timothy. But if we go down there and South Carolina is trying to, clinging on like at 5-6, or 4-5 or whatever, trying to like get to a bowl game, I feel very confident in that. But if they got 7-8 wins by this point, it can be a bit of a tricky game. Just depends on how Spencer Rattler adjusts to this team. I think he's a solid quarterback, but just kind of how the rest is. And Brad says, should win, but not easy. Coach is a clown. Yeah, Brad's not a fan of Shane Beamer. It's like I said, Brad's kind of more in not necessarily in Gamecock country, but he hears more about South Carolina just as much as Tennessee. But it could be interesting. Vandy chances. Yeah, it's going to be over by the end of the first quarter. The Vanderbilt game. And we get them in Nashville. I mean, we got to go to Nashville this year to play them, but it's going to be 99.9% Tennessee fans there. So it's an extra home game. It's going to be over by the first quarter. Vanderbilt's got no chances. Brad says, car salesman coach. Ken to Butch Jones. Oh, you mentioned Butch's name. I was trying to tiptoe around that. Now you got to take some blood pressure medicine. Go back to the podcast and listen to Brad's health concerns. Kentucky chances. This is from Timothy again. Kentucky, I think they're overrated. A lot of people says Will Levis is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. The dude threw 13 interceptions last year, including a pick six to Alontae Taylor. I like Chris Rodriguez, their running back. I think they're going to win games. They're going to be in that 7-8 win range. But we've had their numbers the last several years. They beat us during COVID year, but I just don't. I'm not buying into Kentucky like a lot of the national media is. They are just, to me, they're overrated. Honestly, Timothy, I'm sorry, got too many names going. Honestly, Timothy, I thought South Carolina was going to be kind of in that overhyped train compared to where Kentucky was, but actually it's the opposite. Kentucky's getting the preseason love and not South Carolina. But you get them at home, I think we got a very good chance. It could be a high-scoring game, kind of like last year, but like I said, Will Levis has got to prove to me something, and Kentucky plays a very easy schedule. The only non-conference Power 5 game they always play every year is Louisville at the end of the season. And I just don't get why nobody schedules Kentucky besides Louisville. And I know I sound like I'm burying the Wildcats, which I kind of am. But it's always weird that, like, Kentucky doesn't schedule anybody. Like, as far as like do a home and home or even a neutral site game, if they're supposed to be a rising program, and I'm not saying don't schedule Louisville. I mean that's an in-state foe, but why don't you schedule like Indiana or I don't know, Virginia Tech or some bordering state? Or I don't get it. Kentucky's just where and maybe that's why they're having problems with Mark Stoops and John Calipari of is it a basketball school or is it a football school? I can tell you this, here at the University of Tennessee, we don't have any of them problems. I mean, Danny White gets along great with both Rick Barnes and Josh Heupel and Tony Vitello and Kelly Harper and the rest of the coaching staff. We want to be an all sports school. There you go. I'm off my soapbox there. Where's the Tylenol? Kevin says they got an easy schedule. Shake my head. Yes, absolutely. And Brad says, yep, always do. Kentucky fans, hard as Gator fans. Timothy says, want a rematch versus Ole Miss last time. Third try. Yeah, I would like to play Ole Miss again. I think it could be a different situation. Unfortunately, we don't have them on the schedule this year, and it'll probably be a few years, unfortunately, before we get to them. And anything could happen when the next time we play them. I don't even know when the next time we're scheduled for them. It would be down in Oxford, unfortunately. But yeah, I would love to have another shot against the Lane Train. Bryce says most entertaining thing about Kentucky is the coaches fighting. Absolutely. Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, that's crazy to think itself. But like I said, it's all about leadership. And we got it. And I guess maybe Mitch Farland's got it and Lexington. Who knows? Any others? I guess as far as the rest of the schedule goes, we haven't really talked about Missouri yet. It should be an easy win. We dominated in the last couple of years. I expect the same thing. That game's going to be on my birthday too, so hopefully they'll win on my birthday. Usually they play Kentucky on my birthday, or if it happens to fall on that Saturday, but this year it's Missouri. Yeah, Kentucky, who names their field after a grocery store. Yep, absolutely. Ridiculous. Brad's wondering who on here has listened to our podcast already. I know Kevin has. And pretty much our entire high school graduating class. And half of my family and church family has listened to it also. So, yeah, definitely check it out. Mr. Burrows is in the chat. Brad says winning between the hedges is possible. Do you agree? Yes, yes. Both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line. I agree with what Brad said. Any others? Jimmy checking in on YouTube. Welcome, sir. I'm worried about our running back situation. Yeah, that's kind of been the question throughout fall camp. Brad says it is possible. Yeah, I agree. And thank you, Mr. Rose. Yeah, the running back situation is going to be interesting with a lot of guys kind of banged up, especially from last year with both Small and Wright. Seems like Wright is still banged up a little bit. Seems like Small's healthier, and now we're kind of relying on the freshman. Uh, Definitely, I agree with you. It's going to be a little concerning. Definitely, that first game going to be interesting. First couple of games in general is going to be very interesting to see. Uh, and I mentioned this on the podcast. You know, this is not an air raid offense like Mike Leach runs or some of these other schools run where we're throwing it 50, 60 times a game. Um, you know, we are definitely a balanced attack, and like I said, the running game is a big part of it. Um, and like I said, you know, you want to keep your running backs healthy. And I remember last year, Jerry Mack, the running back coach, talked about you got to have 5, 6 healthy running backs to compete in the SEC. And he's right, because when one goes down or one hits the transfer portal, you got to have somebody to fill that void up. So, definitely so. Let's see here. Mr. Ross says Dees needs to make an appearance on here. uh, Bryce says he's not your teacher anymore today. It's John B. Yeah, I know it's a creature of habit. For those that don't know, my band director is on here. Kevin says I have faith in our coach to figure it out. Yeah, I do too. Uh, Brian throwing a question out there for John. Yeah, like I said, for anybody else tuning in, if you have any questions for the podcast, make sure you use the hashtag podcast so we can discuss it. And make sure you subscribe to it. And like I said, it's gone very well, and we're glad that it's officially out there. Trying to think of any other news and notes. Timothy says rematch versus Purdue. I would love to have a rematch versus Purdue. I think it'd be a totally different game. Brad Frank, Pride of the Southland. Pride of the Southland marching band, best band ever. Need John B on the pod playing the trombone. Absolutely. Be very entertaining. We need to get I love the tuba part to Rocky Top. If you've never heard the tuba part, it's really cool. I would sing it on here, but we get a copyright strike, even though we play it in the intro. Let's see here. That's kind of what else is going on. Brad says Rocky Top's the greatest song ever. Absolutely. A couple of notes here, not really football related. If I can pull my notepad back up here. Where are you at? Yeah, good. There we go. All right. So, real quickly, not football related. I just want to mention this on the podcast we have, or the podcast, the Wednesday night show. Lady Vol soccer team started their season last week. They played a couple of games. They dropped a heartbreaker to North Carolina 3-0, which North Carolina is one of the best soccer programs in the nation, so not a bad loss. And then they tied SMU sometime this week 1-1. Big soccer game tomorrow at Regal Field over in Knoxville. Lady Vols number 23 in the nation taking on number 5 Duke. That's on the SEC Network. Oh, Mr. Rosette, have you talked about your breakout defensive end? Not yet. I will mention him, Byron Young, in a minute. And also, congratulations, we have a new voice of the Lady Vols basketball team, and it's Brian Rice. He replaces Mickey Dearstone, who retired last year. Brian Rice filled in for a couple of games in 2020 during the COVID season. He's the voice also for Lady Vols softball, and he was also the public address announcer at Thompson Boling Arena for Lady Vols games. And he's also called many Tennessee athletic games for the Tennessee's feed of the SEC network that they kind of do. So, congratulations to Brian Rice, the new voice of the Lady Vols. I wanted to get that in there because I don't know when I'm going to mention it. Thank you for the question, Kevin, for the podcast for a discussion about Nico. All right, so let me talk about my breakout players. And definitely go back and check out the podcast. My breakout players for this year, I picked Byron Young and Jacob Warren, the tight end. So we'll talk about Byron Young. So Byron Young uh, last year had 5.5 sacks. A great edge rusher for Tennessee. But like I said, kind of was overshadowed because of the way Will Anderson played last year from Alabama. You know, like I said, I love his story. I love, he, like I said, he was, he fell out of football and picked up a job working at the Dollar General, became an assistant manager, and then they had a tryout for a junior college of the town he was working in, walked on that team, and then Tennessee saw his tape or saw his highlights and signed him, and now he's obviously on the University of Tennessee and one of the best defensive edge rushers in the nation. So I love his story. I love the way he plays. Last year, he only had 20 tackles on the year, but there wasn't a lot of rushing attempts against our defenses, more through the air. But he had 5.5 sacks. I think he can equal those sack totals. I love to see his tackle numbers improve. Also, maybe some pass breakups. He had an interception last year. Uh, I think he's definitely NFL caliber. I love him and both Byron Young and Tyler Barron on the edge. I think Amari Thomas, he's got a big shoes to fill, filling in for Matthew Butler, but I think he's good in the interior. Definitely, I like the defensive line. One of the strengths on the defense that's got a lot of questions. Timothy says he loved to see us play Notre Dame again. I would like to see a home and home in Notre Dame. We haven't played them in probably 20 years or so. Maybe actually probably less than 20 years because I think like '04 was the last time we played them. So yeah, why not? I would love to see a home and home with Florida State. That would be kind of interesting. And Brad says one day at Dollar General, now playing college ball. It's a great story. Uh, Seems like he's a great character from everything I'm hearing, and it seems like a lot of these players on the team has great characters. Um, and like I said, it feels like Josh Heupel and the staff are very particular uh, of who they want on this team. But thank you for the questions. Brad says, "What do our fans think the most important win for us this year is?" Um, I said Florida on the podcast. I still think is an important win, but definitely when we go to Pittsburgh week 2, and I've had time to think about it. When we go to Pittsburgh for week 2, I think that's gonna set the tone for the rest of the season. Like I said, you get them right after Ball State. It's on the road. It's a different Pitt team that you're facing compared to last year when they had Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison and Mark Whipple running that offense, and now they're all gone. It's going to be completely different, but they still got some great players, especially defensive players. Pat Narduzzi is a great coach, very defensive mind player. Yeah, I think Pitt's win, and John is saying the same thing. That Pitts is big is so big for us, must win. Timothy says let's play Michigan. That would be interesting too. Probably not now, but maybe when Harbaugh leaves. Let's see. Yep. Let's see. The tragedy for the whole season could be set in game 2. Yeah. Like I said, I think obviously you don't want to lose that Pitt game. because you're gonna all the momentum's just gonna be blown out. If you come back and beat Florida, I think you build some momentum up, but then you're gonna have that mentality of like, okay, well, Florida's not as good as we thought it's gonna be, and what's gonna happen with LSU? What's gonna happen to Alabama? And then you're like, now that Kentucky game, that South Carolina games are now toss-up games. So, has our secondary improved in the off season? It's hard to say. I think there's better depth. I know they moved Christian Charles. We mentioned this on the podcast also. We moved Christian Charles from safety to corner. Could he get one of those positions? Can Warren Burrell step up on a corner? Where does Brandon Turnage and Kamal Hadden fit into it? And then I didn't even mention the transfers. Wesley Walker from Georgia Tech and Andre Turrentine from Ohio State. Where do they all fit? The safety position I'm fine with McCullough and Flowers. I think they can fill that role great with where Theo Jackson was last year. It was kind of our only safety at times. I think they're both fine where they're at. I think they'll probably get a lot of the. They'll probably get most of the interceptions. Hopefully, we had several last year, especially about how bad our secondary was. But I think they'll get a chunk of the interceptions if it comes our way. But but like Brad is saying, we got to stop teams putting up high points, and you're right, you can't have that. Of Kevin's comment from earlier, I think Georgia or Bama, I would love to see it as far as like beating them. Yeah, yeah, we gotta do that. John says, David Morrison, thank you for so much for dropping all the knowledge. You must have been reading all the time. I try when I can, just what free time I have, and try to gather as much knowledge. And Brad says, third down efficiency ranked 106 last year. Can't happen this year. Yeah. Absolutely. Third down conversion's got to be big. It's got to be big for us. And Dee's mentioned this on the podcast when we played Ole Miss, and Matt Corral on those third down runs just killed us last year. And you'll be facing some mobile quarterbacks in Richardson at Florida and Young at Alabama. Spencer Rattler can run at South Carolina. I don't remember Will Levis running a whole lot for Kentucky, but you gotta get them off. You gotta get off the field on third down. Like I said, and I mentioned this also. What is Tim Banks is going to dial up on third down? What plays is he going to do? Is he going to go after the quarterback more? Is he going to put certain players in third down conversions? There's a lot of questions into that, and what can Josh Heupel bring into third down plays too? And Kevin says exactly. Got to get off the field. Absolutely, that's a big key thing. Brad says if we do, we're going to have a great season, boys. Yeah, and it feels like even like the national media, and I know Tennessee fans have a love-hate relationship with the national media and certain analysts and stuff, but they kind of are unanimous as far as, okay, Tennessee is improving. We know the offense can drive. We know they can score, but what does that defense look like? And even Tennessee fans are having that same question. Like I said, you'll probably get some answers with Ball State, but probably not a lot. But yeah, definitely Pitt. You definitely will, and even Florida, and then going on the rest of the season. And like I said, we'll find out a lot about some of these our opponents, because a lot of these teams are playing big marquee week one matchups. Pitt's playing West Virginia next Thursday night. Matter of fact, the same time we are playing Ball State. So we'll learn a lot about Pitt. You'll learn a lot about Florida as they play Utah. Georgia plays Oregon, so you'll learn a lot about Georgia. They lost a lot of talent off of that team. I'm trying to think. Alabama doesn't have a big game this year. They play Texas week 2, so it'll be a couple of weeks before we learn about them. Brad says, what games are on next Saturday? So you got, let's see. So Georgia and Oregon plays in Atlanta. on that night, or that afternoon, the 3:30 game. You got Cincinnati and Arkansas in a sleeper game that next Saturday around the same time. Is Arkansas for real? Like I said, Cincinnati's a team from was a playoff team last year. I think that's probably going to be probably the most entertaining game throughout the entire weekend. Utah going to Florida is going to be interesting. Utah's a preseason Pac-12 favorite. Florida is breaking in the Billy Napier era. I think Utah has better talent than Florida, but you got a team from the West Coast that normally plays in cold climates going to play in a very warm climate down in the swamp. LSU and Florida State Sunday night down in New Orleans. That's interesting to see. So we'll find out about LSU a little bit more. Notre Dame and Ohio State's the big game everybody's going to be talking about, but I think that's not going to be much of a contest. I think Ohio State's significantly better than Notre Dame, but it is a top 5 matchup. Of course, I've had my opinions on that. Timothy says if we beat Pitt then Florida, then that's a good start. Yeah, absolutely. Be 4-0 going into Baton Rouge. Florida, Brett says Florida has more assistants than players. I did see that. That's very Butch Jones like. I'm not gonna lie. I get what they were trying to do. They wanted to recognize everybody and everybody that works in the Florida football department, but you usually don't see like management and water boys and it's just there was like way too many people in that one. Yeah, car salesman, absolutely. Like a hashtag one family or something, but that's Florida's problem. That's not ours. We try to play the best football as we can up here. Also, Kendra Jones. So yeah, between him and Shane Beamer, I guess. I would even probably throw Eli Drinkowich into that mix too. Not so much for Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. He's just kind of in a bad situation, but there's really nobody in the West that's has that mentality. It's all in the East. Everybody in the West has got a big time personality. Let's get the trash can back on the sideline. I don't know. Maybe just to throw Gatorade bottles in, but not footballs. Any other questions or comments? It's been a lot of fun. Okay, right, say kidding. Okay, good. It's been a lot of fun tonight. Mike said, make sure the podcast, David Morrison for President 2024. Oh, man. I don't know. Kevin C's ready to beat Bam and we can smoke those cigars. Yeah. That would be very nice. I think it's going to happen one day. Could be this year. Yeah, when we gave Bam a scare last year, up until about the fourth quarter, and then just ran out of gas. But anything can happen any given Saturday. Like I said, it's been a lot of fun. Make sure you're listening to the podcast, the inaugural episode of Good Old Rocky Talk with our founder Brad. With Brad says we win, I'll smoke a cigar live. There you go. Our founder Brad's the host of it. I'm part of it. The other David is also on it. D's and like I said, hopefully get some guests on there sometime in the future. Just make sure wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, that's where we're at. Good Old Rocky Talk. Make sure you subscribe to it and get ready to and like I said, enjoy this football season and bring some entertainment. Like I said, we got a bit. Next week's going to be very busy. I mean, think about next Wednesday at this time will be the eve of Tennessee football starting their 2022 season. I can't believe it. It'll be one day away. Like I said, we're here at 8 as a recording time. Yeah, that's talk. Yeah, so make sure when you're searching it, Rocky Talk, Talk, not talk. We love Rocky Talk, but this one is called Rocky Talk. So, good old Rocky Talk. And John says, can't wait for next week. Absolutely, should be a lot of fun. Like I said, We will, like we did last year on Mondays, we will be sharing the live stream of Josh Heupel's press conference. Usually it's around noonish when he does those on Monday, so we'll have it on the Vol Society Facebook page, and I guess we'll put it on Twitter this year. And so you can watch along on your lunch break or whenever you can. We'll have that on there. Like I said, we will have the Wednesday night Vol Society Live with myself on there. The podcast will be dropping, I believe, on Tuesdays. Good old Rocky Talk. And then on Thursday afternoons will be Tailgate Thursday. This is going to be a drive-through episode of Vol Society Live, a quick 5-minute preview of all the games coming up throughout the week. Like I said, we don't really go too deep with the Tennessee opponent, but then we'll talk about other games to watch out for that could implement our season or implement the SEC or in college football in general. That's Tailgate Thursday. Is going to be around Thursday afternoon. We're going to do it like Thursday morning, but I want to give our viewers that didn't tune in to Vol Society Live a chance to listen to the show before we drop the Thursday episode to provide any confusion. We'll bring you some stuff like that. Like I said, a huge week. Ball State's coming up. Tennessee football's back. We're about in the final days of summer, although we're still got some warm weather probably for the next month or so. But it's football time in Tennessee. Finally, Voss says let's go. And taking over 10. Bill says watching from our alumni Chicago chapter watch party next Thursday. Can't wait. That's awesome. And thank you for tuning in, Bill. Gonna watch that up in the Windy City. Very cool. Very cool. That gonna watch that game next Thursday up there. It is the best time of year. Like I said, college football's here. Went to watch high school football last Friday. Kind of got that sampling. My alma mater, McMinn County Cherokees, shut out our rivals. Well, little brother rivals, McMinn Central Chargers, 50-0, and now we're going to Cleveland on Friday night. I'm going to go to Tellico High School and support my buddy Bobby White, who's a head coach up there at Tellico. They're playing, believe it or not, playing Central that same night. Shout out to our other buddy Derek Vessel, who's the head coach at Sequoia. Had a tough game against Telco last week. They go to Polk County. So I want to give a shout out to our high school football teams across the volunteer state. Like I said, if you have a chance to got nothing to do on a Friday night, please go support these young people. Support high school football if you can. If not, what if there's a live stream, watch it. Support these communities. Like I said, we think high school football is the heartbeat of football in America. I mean, it's the grassroots, and we love it and support it too. Brad says he's in the Charlotte alumni group, and Bill says he's going to the Pitt game, but one game at a time, go Big Orange. Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm glad that you tuned into us and found us. And like I said, make sure you follow along on, I'm sure, obviously you're checking us on Facebook. So I'm sure you follow us along. Make sure you listen to the podcast, the inaugural episode of Good Old Rocky Talk. That's TALK. Available all across where you listen to your podcasts. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for everybody tuning in tonight. Next Wednesday night, it's Christmas Eve, theoretically, for Tennessee football. Thank you. Good old Rocky Talk, Mr. John Burroughs. Timothy says my high school's here in Rockwood, Tennessee. Awesome. That's very cool. That's where Megan Fox is from. Anyways, that's beside the point. Yep. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, John Burroughs. Rockwood Tigers, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Christmas Eve next week, theoretically, Tennessee football as we get ready for the Volunteers to take on Ball State. We'll talk all about Ball State, what information we can gather up, although it's not much. And we'll talk about some of our favorite Tennessee memories throughout the year. And I know we're going to talk about it on the podcast. like I said, make sure listen to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to across our social media platforms when we launch some big stuff. Big week next week. Uh, beginning Monday, Josh Heupel's press conference will be across our social media platforms. We will have the podcast coming up, I believe, on Tuesday. Fall Society Live on Wednesday. Tailgate Thursday. I'll have to come up with something for Friday. And then, well, actually, Thursday will be game day, obviously. But then, like, going forward, we'll have to come up with something for Friday. And, yeah, tell your Vol fans about Vol Society. Let's go. It's here. Like I said, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you for everybody tuning in. We'll talk to y'all next Wednesday night for some Tennessee football as we preview Ball State. Yeah, Brad said Friday high school game of the week. I will definitely get into that for that. So we'll preview a high school game of the week. That's going to wrap it up. Good night, everybody, and go Vols.